Hey, it's Paul with Lis Data, and on this video I want to show you a tried and tested way of consistently getting deals. So I'll spend a few minutes to kind of give you a little bit of background of why I think you're not closing deals, right? Just like everyone else. And later we'll dive into the specifics of consistently doing this, right? So to start off with, I know many of you may come across a lot of videos, obviously on YouTube. It's just how you came across mine as well, right? But if you're currently following what every guru is telling you out there, right, is to go to specific platforms, right? And one of them is obviously PropStream, which is a really amazing product. Obviously, they've been in the space for a long time, right? But I wanted to kind of give you an idea of how I think people are using it, and well, I know based on some of our customers, right? So if you're going there, the software makes it super easy for you to pull pre-foreclosures, right? But I think one of the flaws here is that doesn't really specify, or for the average person, they don't really understand what a pre-foreclosure is, right? And I took the liberty to kind of show you some of the documents that they do include in there, right? So a lot of them is notice of default, trustee sales, auction notice, right? And I gave a bit of an explanation here and some of the time frame before it takes place. So the only problem here is that based on our research, right, and our data, some of their county clerk documents are coming in 30 days later, right? And obviously some of the counties, they're a lot better. They do a lot more coverage, right? So this video isn't about any of the deficiencies that they have, because like I said, they're an amazing product and there's a lot of features that even I use, such as MLS comps. But I just wanted to give you an idea that most likely once you pull pre-foreclosures, right, hundreds if not thousands of customers are also pulling pre-foreclosures, right? So that's why a lot of times when you end up calling a lot of homeowners, they've been called tens or thousands or hundreds of times already, and obviously you know how that cold calling goes, right? So what I wanted to show you, just quickly give you an idea of the amount of time it takes for a lot of the records to show up on their site, and again, this may not be reflected for all counties, but at least for the ones that our customers are coming from, unfortunately they are. And again, the point of this video and the point of general our real estate data business is to focus on the niche data and act fast, right? So I've covered this in a few other videos, so I'm going to go through very quickly so we can jump right into our use case here. But in my opinion, you're not closing deals because you're wasting time chasing the wrong data. And by wrong data, I just mean that you're following YouTube videos just like this one, and you're doing exactly what hundreds if not thousands of people are doing, right? So you're not doing anything differently for your unique county or wherever you're doing your marketing, right? And what I always want to remind a lot of our customers is that I'm just showing you where the data comes from, right? Big vendors, they're in the business of data reselling, right? So obviously PropStream and a lot of companies have a lot of resources, but at the end of the day, they're data resellers. They have parent companies, and whether they disclose where the data comes from or not, right? Here in this screenshot, you can pretty much see where all different document types come from, right? Whether you were talking about evictions, if you were talking about tired landlords, right? Vacancies, etc. So this is where it comes from. Obviously, those software makes it a lot easier for you to pull that data instantly, right? And you don't have to do a lot of the hard work. But we're not here for that, right? In this video, I want to show you exactly how you can find this data for your own county, right? And this applies whether you're in Texas or Florida or Arizona, right? Depending on the county and state, a lot of them may have moved those documents into a digital format, right? So they'll probably have some sort of government portal, which you probably know better than anyone else, right? So what I wanted to jump in is give you an idea of all the different document types or instrument types that are found in county clerk offices, right, or districts. So here's some of my favorite ones, and some of the ones that our customers and we use to consistently close deals, right? And again, the advantage here is that we're getting this ones close to real time, or as soon as they hit the county clerk website, or whether we're talking about tax delinquencies, or whether we're talking about vacancies or code violations, right? We're in the business of data, right? And I'm a data expert, and so is my team. So the beauty of this is that we know this data and we know how to stack it or list stack it as you would in other software, right? But again, we go directly to the source. We're not a data reseller, right? We curate our own data. So that's the advantage that you get. Just throwing as a reminder. But again, all of these documents here are related to a series of events that most property owners will go through before they hit that auction or that foreclosure state, right? Whereas, again, as a reminder, a lot of the data that you're getting here is close to, if not the auctions almost taking place already, right? And many of you that are, they've been more, you're a little more seasoned in the real estate game. You understand this better than the average, late teens, early 20s individual who's trying to make easy money on YouTube following a lot of wholesalers, right? So you clearly understand a little bit better because you're a little more educated, and that's what gives you the advantage, right, and the upper hand on which document types to focus. And obviously a lot of you have your own marketing, the ways that you do your creative financing or whatever it is that you do to market your business. So back to here. You can obviously pause this and give it a read, right? But some of our favorite ones are the Lis Pendens, which is basically a lawsuit, right? Basically litigation. And we spend a little bit of time determining how early can you market to these individuals, right, before it becomes into a foreclosure state or auction. Some of the earliest ones are also appointment of trustee or substituted trustee, and this is when the person's falling behind their mortgage. Modification as well. Sometimes you as a homeowner, if you're having financial challenges, you may work out a better loan, right? Modification. But in a lot of foreclosure scenarios that we've seen, usually an individual may go through 2 or 3 modifications before they end up having their property foreclosed. Same thing with installment, just sort of catching up with a lot of missed payments, right? Bankruptcy is pretty self-explanatory. Abstract adjustment as well. So wanted to give you a few examples of some of the document types that you can find in your own local county. And continuing on, here's a few more. Whether we're talking about tax liens, maybe again, a lot of properties or a lot of taxpayers are behind their taxes, but until they become delinquent is to the point where they need to take action, right? We've seen a few individuals that are behind taxes, but they've been behind taxes for many years and nothing has happened, right? So just because someone owes taxes doesn't mean that they're going to be motivated to sell right away. The other things are mechanic liens, all right? So a lot of folks have added on debt, whether it's consumer debt, but on top of that, they may be dealing with home renovations, etc., that they don't have the money to pay for. So they get hit with something called mechanics liens, lien of affidavit, etc. There's probate information as well, or affidavit of heirship as well. So if someone passes away, that's another document type that may be of interest to you. So again, before I jump into the actual scenario, right, I wanted to just give you that a bit of context. And again, those documents are all found in your local county, right? So if you look up for your county name you could just search for, say you're in Los Angeles County, county clerk, right? If you're in Florida, same thing, right? I'll share this spreadsheet if you're interested, so that way you can find your county. If it's not listed, obviously a quick Google will get you there. But for the purposes of my example, let's say we jumped into Bexar, right? The website is going to look somewhat different, right? So some of them will call it a document type, others will call it an instrument type, but regardless, the language is the same, right? So as we saw earlier, we can search for things like Lis Pendens, right? We can search for things like trustee or appointment of trustee. The other thing to point out is that some of the counties would have the entire sort of word, appointment of a trustee, substitute a trustee. Some of them will have just a sort of like shortcut, right? So I know Harris County has just appointment, and for things like notice of foreclosure, it'll just say notice, and that's it, right? So a lot of times you're gonna have to open the document itself to get more context into, what is the document about. So going back here, right? There's modification as well. Let's see if modification. Again, a lot of our use cases are based on Florida, Texas, Arizona, right? Northern states may have slightly different language, but it boils down to the same, right? And when in doubt, you can always pull up something like ChatGPT and say, hey, for my county or for my city, tell me the instrument types or document types that mean the same thing as, say, modification or reinstatement. A lot of them, like I said, pretty straightforward, but for the most part, may use slightly different language. Again, once you pull this information, right, make sure that obviously you're looking at, I like to look at the last 2 years just to get an idea of historical events if I already locked in specific property, right? So I want to see if there's been things like Lis Pendens, loan modifications, any tax liens, or any type of liens in general, just to get an idea of what I'm looking for. And for a lot of times, based on our data, we've also seen HOA related documents. So HOA has the ability to raise foreclosures and expedite them as well. And whether depends on how you feel about that situation, that's besides the point. But once you find exactly what you're looking for here, I'm gonna set a little bit of time just for the sake of this video. So let's do 1st of June. We'll search for that. Again, you're gonna get different results. And in this instance, as you can see, there's specific, we'll open this. This is gonna be about a loan modification, right? Not gonna go into it just for the sake of privacy for this, but it's as simple as this, right? And if you notice here, some counties will provide you a legal description. Some counties will provide you the actual property address, right? Majority of the times though, depending on your county and depending on the level of privacy that the county has, you're gonna end up having to open the documents and find an instrument number, right? Can't spell number. So here, let's step back. Want to show you a sort of the what I'm describing as the manual part, right? If you're searching on your local county office, again, majority of them, from my experience, may give you a legal description, as we saw here. What does this mean? Well, every parcel or every property has a legal description, even if it's an underdeveloped parcel, right? For most of you, obviously the easiest thing is to find the full property address, right? Which is super simple. And at that point, it makes it easier, especially if you're gonna do any kind of skip tracing or if you're gonna search this individual using whatever tools you're using, right? But once you determine that, you're finding a few documents, a few properties that you're interested in, if you open the document and for some reason you don't have the subdivision name, etc., right, is this information you can find it on your county clerk property. So you could literally click on here. A lot of them allow you to click on that legal one, and basically what I'm looking for typically is the deed of trust. So the deed of trust is going to show you the original amount, the borrower, the trustee. But what I'm looking for in the deed of trust is typically, one, what is the property address? Two, how much was the initial loan for? And when is the maturity date, right? And that helps us calculate the total equity that's built, right? So again, depending on the years of ownership or depending on how much the person has paid off some of the mortgage, that's going to give you an idea whether this is a good deal or not. If you're doing this deals yourself, or if you have a cash buyer, this is really important information. And again, this information can be found in the county clerk site. The modification agreement. So typically, those instrument types are always going to point you back to the deed of trust. But when there's modification agreements or loan modifications, that's going to be a more up-to-date, quote-unquote, deed of trust, where you're going to see the new loan terms, right? So this is another sort of mistake that a lot of people make, is that they may go for the original deed of trust, and so that throws off your numbers a little bit. So just make sure that you're also looking at that modification as well. And lastly, like I mentioned, that instrument or book page reference, this is going to be for you to type back, to that deed of trust document, right? And I wanted to show you an example of how a deed of trust document looks like. So typically, a lot of them have the actual address, which again makes it super easy. They have the trustees and the grantor and grantee. So one of the grantor is going to be the individual that's paying for the mortgage at the moment, and that's going to be the person that you typically are going to reach out to, sort of the mail to address. That's going to allow you to skip trace, right? And obviously, depending on your marketing, maybe you're doing mailers, physical mailers, or maybe you have a virtual assistant team that does cold calling all day, right? So this is where that information is coming from, right? And this is how a lot of software such as PropStream or ListSource, etc., that's how they calculate the total equity based on the initial loan and also the terms in terms of the interest, right? So you calculate that from, let's say, if a property was purchased in 2001, and let's say the end date is October 2045, then you can calculate the amount of payments, right, per month. And there's also a lot of formulas around calculating, how much is insurance and taxes, right? So I'm sure you can Google that, or again, ask ChatGPT. So I wanted to, just cover that bit, and just kind of going back here, right? Again, no company out there is doing any kind of magical things when it comes to data, putting data together, right? Most likely this is where they're getting their data. They're also getting data from title companies, right? One of them being First American, right? And obviously there's a lot of more data that they have access to, right, that we don't have. And again, wanted to remind you what are some of those document types that we find very relevant and the time frame that you can use to start marketing, right? The other bits that I was focused on as well is that experienced investors would try to reach out ahead of time, and you'll try to work, something out with the property owner, right? I think, in my opinion, for what I've seen with a lot of individuals pulling data from these platforms, is that you're using the same scripts, right? And you're coming off as very predatory, and you're just coming off as lowballing individuals. And depending on their circumstances, let's say someone's going through a probate process, right? They lost someone, they're going through divorce, or they're going through a certain situation. If you call them and use the same script that hundreds or thousands of people have already called them, I mean, they're probably not going to want to sell it to you, right? And they're going to be very, very annoyed. So what I have seen work is reaching out, having a variety of creative ways, right? Maybe owner finance, whatever it is, to help that person in that situation. And again, that just comes with experience, in my opinion, right? And being empathetic towards their situation. So with that, wanted to take it all back, right? And let's just summarize what we've gone through. So like I said, we help our customers focus on niche data and act fast, right? A lot of our customers may not have a team of, 8 to 10 cold callers, right? A lot of our customers, small operations, right? We do have larger customers, and they're pulling 20 to 30,000 records, right? Maybe they're just focusing on absentee own. They may not care too much about this, right? But the ones that we do that are more targeted, their cost of operation is lower. A lot of them are doing mailers, right? Where many of you miss a lot of individuals because you're just skip tracing and cold calling, right? You need a variety of channels, right? Just like how people do pay-per-click and whatnot, right? Whatever strategy works for you, focus on that, right? And again, we are big fans of focusing on niche data, not just pulling what all of your guru YouTubers are telling you to, because they want you to sign up and they get money from that, from you signing up, right? From their affiliate programs, I should say. They may not be in the best interest to help you close deals, right? Nothing wrong with the platform. It's just that, the more folks using it and specific use cases, right? So be sure to know your own market and your own use cases, because a lot of times too, you're calling stale records, right? So for us, how can we help you, right? Went through sort of the manual process of doing that, because again, as you know, most people are not going to be willing to do the work, because it does require a bit of manual processes, right? And a lot of people, hire VAs, etc., to go through this manually, or they use services like ours, right? We make the work a lot easier for you. So depending on the county, right? And again, we don't cover all counties, but if you reach out to us, jump on a demo call, we can work with you on acquiring that data for you. So here's an example of how easy it is to pull that information whenever we have built something for you for your own use case, right? So in this instance, let's say we're looking for notice or foreclosure documents, right? As you can see, the documents are pulled already. And again, we get way ahead of some of these situations as well, right? So by the time the foreclosure documents hit the county clerk, we already have information from past events that took place. And this is where we've gone to learn about, what documents occur before a foreclosure happens. And based on that, we're able to tell you, well, a appointment of trustee occurred. There was an affidavit of ownership. There was a loan modification, right? Lis Pendens as well. And all, you have to do is log in. Our data gets refreshed pretty frequently, depending on how often you want us to do it. And at the end of the day, we provide you with all that information that you need to just either skip trace or mail those letters out for your marketing purposes. And that's how we help you close deals in a consistent manner, right? And we're very proud of that. So if you have any questions or if you're interested in, let's jump on a Zoom call. The link is on the YouTube description. And if you have any questions, yeah, add them to the comments, and we'll reply to you here. Thank you.